On the coldest night by the docks, a ruthless king of the city steps out of a black SUV and stops two brutal brothers mid-attack. He takes the terrified baker under his protection, then makes a move no one expects. A marriage for safety, cameras flashing, whispers roaring. But the real danger isn't the street, it's the rival charity boss who wants her gone and the secret deed she didn't know she owns. And somewhere close, a traitor inside his crew is feeding the enemy every step. When a fake rescue turns into a trap in a freezer warehouse, the night explodes. Power cut, doors blown, one choice that could save a community or break her heart. Why did he claim a stranger as his own? Who's the mole standing right beside him? And when love collides with war, does protection become a prison? Or the only way out? Through steam rising from the teacup, Renee studied the man who'd transformed from shadowy threat to unexpected savior. Dorian Vale cut an imposing figure against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, city lights painting stark shadows across his angular features. His suit remained immaculate despite the violence she'd witnessed less than an hour ago. Her hands trembled around the delicate china. The warmth helped, but couldn't chase away the phantom grip of rough fingers on her arms. Safe is relative when I don't know why this is happening. A fair point. Dorian moved with controlled grace to sit across from her, leaving careful distance between them. The brothers who attacked you work for Valerio Cruz. He's been trying to acquire the Hamilton Arts Center. The name hit Renee like ice water. Her mother's legacy, the decrepit waterfront building she'd inherited last month along with controlling shares. The community center, why would anyone... She stopped, pieces clicking into place. It's not about art programs at all, is it? No. His voice carried the weight of steel. Cruz needs that property to complete his corridor. Your refusal to sell has made you a target. Renee set down the tea before she could drop it, wrapping her arms around herself. His wool coat still draped her shoulders, smelling of cedar and something darker. I've had 3 generous offers from his foundation. Each time I said no, things got worse. Break-ins at my shop, threatening calls. But this, she touched her scraped cheek. Cruz doesn't handle rejection well. Dorian's jaw tightened. The Arts Center sits at a critical junction. Without it, his shipping route is vulnerable. He thought intimidation would force a quick sale. And now? Now he knows you're under my protection. Something dangerous flickered in Dorian's eyes, which changes the game entirely. Renee straightened, despite her aching body. I don't need a protector. I need answers. Who are you really? Why help me? I control the Eastern Corridor. Cruz's expansion threatens my interests. His gaze held hers. But watching those thugs put hands on you, that made it personal. I'm not some damsel for rival crime lords to fight over. The words came out sharp, but fear still coiled in her stomach. She'd seen the casual brutality in the alley, both from her attackers and her rescuer. No, you're not. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. You're a successful businesswoman who built herself up from nothing, who feeds half the city's elite with those pastries of yours, who hasn't backed down despite escalating threats. Heat touched her cheeks at the unexpected praise. You've done your research. Thoroughly. The moment Cruz started circling your property, I had you vetted. Your mother's death, the foster care system, opening your first shop at 23, impressive history. Stop! Renee held up a hand. I don't need my life story recited by a stranger, no matter how well informed. What I need is to know my options. Dorian nodded, respect flickering in his expression. Option 1, sell to Cruz. He'll let you live, but you'll lose everything your mother worked for. Option 2, try handling this alone. Based on tonight, that ends badly. His voice softened fractionally. Option 3, accept my protection. I have the resources to keep you safe while we dismantle Cruz's operation. And what does your protection cost? Smart question. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I want exclusive rights to negotiate any future sale or development of the Arts Center property, and your word that you'll follow my security protocols without argument. Renee laughed without humor. So, trade one criminal's control for another's? The difference being, I won't force you to sell. When Cruz is dealt with, the choice remains yours. His eyes turned intense. I'm offering partnership, not ownership. Thunder cracked outside, making her jump. Dorian didn't move, but his attention sharpened. She could feel the weight of his focus like a physical thing. Why should I trust you? She whispered. Because I could have taken the property by force months ago. Instead, I waited, watched, made sure Cruz's pets couldn't hurt you too badly tonight. He stood slowly, power contained in every movement. I protect what's mine, Renee. Let me make you mine. The possessive words should have sent her running. Instead, heat curled through her chest. I need time to think. You have until morning. He moved to the window, staring out at the storm. My guest room is yours, armed security at every entrance. Try to rest. Renee touched her bruised wrist, remembering how efficiently he'd broken the grip of the men hurting her, how carefully he'd wrapped his coat around her after. Dangerous, yes, but perhaps the kind of dangerous she needed. Thank you, she said softly, for stopping them, for the tea, for giving me a choice. He turned back, shadows playing across his face. Always. Whatever you decide tomorrow, know that much is true. I'll never take your choices away. The promise settled something in her chest. Even as questions multiplied, she was trapped in a game between powerful men, yet this one spoke of partnership instead of possession, offered protection with clear terms instead of threats. Still, as she watched him standing sentinel against the storm, Renee wondered if she was trading one devil for another, and whether she could afford to care as long as this devil kept her alive. Renee jolted awake in unfamiliar darkness, her heart hammering. The digital clock read 4:37 a.m. Everything hurt. Her wrist, her cheek, her pride. The guest suite around her whispered of money, Egyptian cotton sheets, leather furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing city lights like scattered diamonds. A security camera blinked red in the corner. She wasn't a prisoner, but she wasn't free either. Padding to the ensuite bathroom, she splashed cold water on her face and studied her reflection. The scrape on her cheek had scabbed over, purple bruises circling her wrist like a bracelet. Her dark curls were a mess, her brown skin ashen with exhaustion. Voices drifted from the hallway, unfamiliar men speaking in low tones. Sweep the south side again, someone ordered. Cruz's people are creatures of habit. They'll have fallback positions. Renee cracked the bedroom door. Two men moved with military precision through the penthouse. The taller one, lean with stark features and steel-rimmed glasses, examined her ruined tote bag with gloved hands. The other, broader with an easy smile that didn't reach his eyes, checked window seals and sightlines. Ms. Parker, Dorian appeared silently beside her, making her jump. I apologize for the intrusion. My team is securing evidence and checking the perimeter. Your team? She wrapped her arms around herself. Soren Pike, my strategist. He nodded toward the man with glasses. And Caleb Knox, head of security. They're ensuring your safety. By going through my things. By collecting prints from your attackers. His voice softened. Come, there's something you need to see. She followed him to a sleek home office. Multiple screens displayed security feeds, financial records, and surveillance photos. Dorian pulled up an image that made her breath catch. Her mother, Grace Parker, smiling and serving soup at a charity event. The banner behind her read, Cruz Community Outreach. When was this taken? Renee's voice cracked. 6 months before her death. Dorian's eyes were gentle, but his tone was clinical. Cruz uses charitable organizations to clean dirty money. Your mother volunteered at several of his fronts, likely without knowing their true purpose. She believed in helping people. Tears burned behind Renee's eyes. Everyone deserved a chance, that's what she always said. Cruz preys on good people, uses their compassion against them. He pulled up more documents. We believe she may have inadvertently witnessed something, signed something. The Arts Center's deed transferred to you upon her death. Cruz's sudden interest suggests there's more to that property than real estate. The walls felt too close. Renee's chest tightened. She needed air, needed space, needed... Kitchen, she managed. Please. Dorian led her there without comment. The kitchen was a chef's dream. Professional-grade everything, gleaming stainless steel, and yards of pristine counter space. Renee ran her hands over the cool marble, breathing deeply. May I? She gestured to the cabinets. He nodded, watching as she explored, checking equipment, evaluating layout, mentally reorganizing. The familiar routine settled her nerves. You'd need more counter space here, she murmured, shifting a knife block. A proper cooling rack, maybe shelving for... The window exploded. Glass rained down as Dorian tackled her, covering her body with his. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. A perfect round hole marked where the bullet had pierced the window. Report! Dorian barked into his phone, still shielding her. Shooter Northwest Tower, Soren's voice crackled back. Knox has counterposition, police incoming. Activate Protocol 7, full lockdown. Dorian's arm tightened around Renee's waist as she tried to move. Stay down! She pressed her face against his chest, trembling as sirens wailed below. Glass crunched under boots as his team swept in. Building's secure, Caleb announced. Shooter's gone. Police ETA 2 minutes. Clear the evidence, Dorian ordered. Standard story. Random shooting, no witnesses. Finally, he looked down at Renee. Are you hurt? She shook her head, unable to speak. His body was hard muscle and expensive wool, smelling of sandalwood and gunpowder. Despite everything, she felt safe in his arms. I need to leave, she whispered, and this is insane. You leave when I know why Cruz wants you. His voice was soft but implacable. And how to stop him. Sirens screamed closer. Renee closed her eyes, glass glittering in her hair like deadly diamonds, and accepted that her world had irreversibly changed. She was caught between 2 dangerous men, and her only choice was which monster's protection to trust. Dorian's hands were gentle as he helped her up, brushing glass from her clothes, but his eyes were cold steel when he looked toward the shattered window. She recognized the expression from the alley, the contained violence of a predator marking prey. You're bleeding, she noticed. A sliver of glass had nicked his neck. It's nothing. He touched the cut absently, gaze still scanning for threats. Soren appeared with a first aid kit. Police in the lobby, Knox is handling it. Good. Dorian guided Renee to a chair, positioning himself between her and the windows. Have Ite sweep her devices, background everyone who's accessed the Arts Center records in the last year. I want to know what Cruz is looking for. Renee watched them work with military efficiency, securing the scene, coordinating stories, protecting their secrets, and her, by extension. The price of that protection hung unspoken between them. Outside, dawn painted the sky in shades of pearl and rose, a beautiful morning for such ugly truths. Renee touched her mother's ring, remembering her smile in that photo, and prayed she was making the right choice by staying. An hour later, the penthouse hummed with restored security protocols. Screens flickered as Soren's fingers flew across keyboards, piecing together the puzzle that had nearly gotten Renee killed. Found it! Soren's normally impassive face tightened. Someone forged your signature as guarantor on a slush account at New Harbor Arts Initiative, one of Cruz's shell charities. Renee gripped the edge of his desk. That's impossible. I never signed anything like that. The document's dated 3 years ago. He pulled up a scanned form. Your former foster guardian's name is here, too. Cruz's people are demanding the account be transferred, or they'll make an example. Let me see. Dorian leaned in, studying the signature. His shoulder brushed Renee's, warm and solid. Who had access to your personal documents? Renee closed her eyes, thinking. My foster mother died last year. The caseworker retired. Trevor... She stopped. Trevor? Dorian's voice sharpened. Trevor Hale, my foster brother. The words tasted bitter. We were close once, but he started gambling, borrowing money. I haven't heard from him in months. Dorian and Soren exchanged looks. Find him, Dorian ordered. Renee's hands trembled. She needed to move, to do something familiar before panic set in. Your kitchen. Can I use it? Dorian nodded, following as she walked quickly down the hall. The broken window was now covered with reinforced sheeting, kitchen pristine again, except for the missing pane. Renee opened cabinets, checking supplies. Basic muffin recipe. I can work with this. She pulled out flour, sugar, measuring cups. The routine motions settled her racing heart. What do you need? Dorian asked quietly. Preheat to 375. She measured flour while he adjusted the oven. 2 bowls, whisk, measuring spoons. He moved efficiently, gathering supplies. His tie was gone, sleeves rolled to expose muscled forearms. The dangerous man from the alley transformed into her kitchen assistant. Whisk these! She handed him the dry ingredients. His technique was precise, careful. She tried not to notice how his hands dwarfed the whisk, how intently he watched her work. You've done this before, she observed, creaming butter and sugar. My mother taught me the basics. A rare smile softened his features. Though I was more interested in eating than baking. Most kids are. She demonstrated the proper folding technique. Gentle, you're not interrogating the batter. His low chuckle surprised her. He followed her instructions exactly. Movements controlled, despite his strength. When she reached for the muffin tin, he was there first, holding it steady. They worked in comfortable silence, the kitchen filling with warm, Vanilla scents. Renee almost forgot the danger until she caught Dorian scanning the windows between steps. "I'll clear your name," he said as she filled the tins. "But Cruz's operation runs deep. Until I burn out every trace of rot, you're a target." "Which means I'm under your protection." She slid the muffins into the oven. "There's a difference between protection and ownership." "There is." He watched her set the timer. "I protect what's mine, but I don't cage what's free." The oven's heat had nothing on the intensity of his gaze. Renee forced herself to meet those steel gray eyes. "I don't belong to anyone." "You belong to yourself," he agreed softly. "And I will keep it that way." The timer ticked in the silence between them. Renee thought of her mother's smile in that photo, of Trevor's betrayal, of the bullet that had shattered more than glass. She thought of Dorian's coat around her shoulders, his body shielding her from harm. When the muffins were done, golden brown and fragrant, they stood at the kitchen island together. Steam rose as Renee split one open, butter melting into the tender crumb. "Perfect," Dorian murmured, taking a bite. A streak of flour marked his rolled sleeve, incongruous against the expensive fabric. "Baking is chemistry and physics," she said. "Follow the rules, respect the process, and you get consistent results." Unlike people, she agreed. "Though some are more consistent than others." His eyes flickered to her face. "And what have you concluded about my consistency, Ms. Parker?" "That you're exactly who you appear to be." She broke off a piece of muffin. "Dangerous, controlled, protective to the point of possessive. And that doesn't frighten you?" "What frightens me is not having choices." The muffin was warm in her hands, grounding her. "You offer protection, but with conditions. Cruz offers threats, but with no choice at all. I'm trying to find my path between impossible options." "There's always a choice." Dorian's voice was quiet. "Even if it's only in how we face what's coming." Renee thought of her mother's dedication to helping others, how that same dedication had perhaps led to her death. She thought of Trevor, choosing betrayal over brotherhood, of Dorian, choosing to stop in that alley when others would have driven past. "Then I choose to face it standing," she said. "Not hiding, not running. Whatever Cruz wants, whatever Trevor did, I'll deal with it on my terms." "Our terms," Dorian corrected gently. "You're not alone in this." The morning sun slanted through reinforced windows, painting the kitchen in soft gold. In this light, surrounded by the scent of fresh-baked comfort, it was almost possible to forget the violence waiting outside, almost possible to ignore how Dorian's presence made her feel both safer and more vulnerable. She met his gaze across the granite island, this man who killed with precision but measured flour with care. "I don't belong to anyone," she repeated, needing him to understand. "You belong to yourself," he said again, "and I will keep it that way." Between them, steam rose from broken bread like a promise. The elevator dinged softly. Renee clutched her map and the wadded cash she'd found in her tote, stepping forward, then froze. Two bodies sprawled across marble tiles, dark blood pooling beneath them. Cruz's colors marked their jackets. A man in a suit, the building manager, stood trembling against the wall while Caleb kept watch, gun drawn. His usually casual demeanor had vanished, replaced by coiled tension. "Back inside, Ms. Parker." Caleb's voice was steel. "Now!" She stumbled backward as security swarmed the hallway. Her hands shook as Dorian guided her to the living room, his touch gentle but firm. "The whole city's their hunting ground," he said quietly. "Cruz has eyes everywhere." Renee sank onto the leather couch, map crumpling in her fist. "Those men!" "We're here to take you, or kill you." Dorian's jaw tightened. "We haven't confirmed which." She pressed her fingers to her temples, fighting nausea. The casual violence, the bodies, the blood. It was all too real now. Her bakery seemed a lifetime away. "Come with me," Dorian offered his hand. When she took it, he led her down the hallway to the guest suite. The room had transformed. Fresh clothes hung in the closet, all in her size, from casual to formal. The bedding was new, in soft creams and blues. A sleek keypad gleamed beside the door. "Your code." He showed her how to set it. "No one enters without your permission, not even me." The attached kitchen stopped her breath. Professional-grade equipment lined the counters, a stand mixer, food processor, specialty pans, everything she'd ever mentioned loving in her own kitchen. "You chose all this?" She ran her fingers over a French rolling pin. "Soren researched your interviews, your social media, but yes, I selected each piece." Dorian watched her explore. "You can work here, rest here, think here. A beautiful cage is still a cage. But she couldn't deny the relief of solid walls between her and those bodies in the hall. Outside these walls, Cruz takes away all choice. Dorian's voice hardened. I'm offering you options within necessary limits. Renee tested the deadbolt, heard it slide home. Her own private fortress. How long? Until we neutralize the threat. He moved to the window, scanning the skyline. Soren's tracking the Mercers now. We'll find who signed those papers, who set this in motion. She thought of Trevor, of betrayal wrapped in brotherhood. And then you choose. Dorian turned back to her. But for now, we need a plan. He laid it out with military precision. Round-the-clock security, no unescorted exits. A carefully staged public appearance to draw out Cruz's watchers. You want to use me as bait? Her voice rose. I want to control the battlefield. Dorian's eyes were intense. Force them to move when and where we choose. Renee paced the kitchen, running her hands over smooth countertops. Everything here was meant to comfort her, to make her feel at home. But home didn't come with armed guards and body counts. Through the window, the city sprawled beneath heavy clouds. Her bakery was out there somewhere, her life's work, her mother's old haunts, now revealed as Cruz's territory. Streets she'd walked freely yesterday were killing grounds today. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass. No way out that didn't end in a morgue drawer. The truth of it settled like lead in her stomach. The security team will rotate in shifts, Dorian continued. Caleb takes point during the day, Soren's people at night. I'll be here as much as possible. And if I refuse? But she already knew the answer. Then Cruz wins? Dorian's reflection appeared beside hers in the window. And everything your mother tried to protect gets buried with you. Renee closed her eyes. The morning sun warmed her face through the glass. Below, sirens wailed, probably cleaning up the mess in the hallway. Real people had died there, wearing Cruz's colors. More would die before this ended. She thought of her bakery's morning routine, unlocking the door, firing up the ovens, greeting regulars who felt like family. Simple things, now impossible. I need to call my staff, she said. They'll worry. Soren's handling it. Food safety inspection, emergency repairs. Your reputation stays clean. Of course he'd thought of that. Dorian thought of everything. She turned from the window. The kitchen gleamed, every tool precisely placed. The bedroom beyond promised comfort and safety. The keypad offered an illusion of control. I'll need ingredients, she said finally, if I'm staying. Make a list. Was that relief in his voice? Whatever you need. Renee nodded slowly. She'd survived foster care, built a business from nothing, carved out her place in a brutal industry. She could survive this too. One condition, she said. When this is over, when Cruz is dealt with, I walk away. Clean break, no obligations. Agreed. Dorian's response was immediate, though you might find you want different terms by then. She thought of his hands whisking batter, his body shielding her from bullets. Dangerous thoughts. We'll see. She moved to the kitchen island, found a notepad waiting. For now, I need flour and sugar and everything else they took when they bagged my tote for evidence. Dorian watched her write, his presence both reassuring and unsettling. Outside, the city stirred to life, unaware of the war brewing in its shadows. Renee added items to her list, each ingredient a small act of defiance against fear. The deadbolt was solid. The knives were sharp. And somewhere out there, Cruz was waiting. For now, she'd take safety where she found it, even if it looked like a cage. The city lights sparkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows as Renee sat across from Dorian at his massive dining table, files and documents scattered, between them like battlefield plans. Her phone lay silent after a day of carefully scripted calls to vendors and staff. Everything normal, nothing to see here. There's a solution, Dorian said, his voice measured. He slid a folder toward her. Temporary, but comprehensive. Renee opened it to find marriage license forms. Her breath caught. Excuse me? A legal marriage would place you under syndicate protection immediately. He spoke as if discussing a business merger. You'd have access to our security protocols, legal counsel, medical directives. Most importantly, it would block third-party interference with your finances and assets. You want me to marry you? The words felt absurd on her tongue. As what? A prop? A pity case? As a protected spouse. Dorian's eyes held hers steadily. Paper shields, while I dismantle Cruz's operation. Nothing more. Renee pushed back from the table, needing space to think. The penthouse stretched around them, all steel and glass and subtle security. Outside, somewhere in the gathering dark, Cruz's people were watching, waiting. "I won't be a silent bride," she said finally. "If we do this, I need full transparency. No hidden agendas, no protecting me by keeping me in the dark." Dorian nodded. "Agreed." "And when Cruz is neutralized, the marriage ends. Clean dissolution, no strings." "Of course." Most importantly, Renee leaned forward. "I get veto power over any operation that puts civilians at risk. I won't have innocent people caught in the crossfire." Something like respect flickered in Dorian's expression. "Done. Without hesitation." He reached into his jacket and produced a small velvet box. "This is temporary. You can choose something else later if you want." Inside lay a simple platinum band. No diamonds, no flash. Nothing that would draw attention or mark her as a target. Practical, like everything else about this arrangement. 24 hours, she said. Courthouse, minimal witnesses. And we need everything in writing. Dorian was already pulling out legal papers. Soren drafted a private contract addendum. It covers consent, privacy, disclosure requirements. You can have your own lawyer review it. Renee read through the documents carefully, surprised by their thoroughness. Every concern she might have raised was already addressed: protection without possession, safety without submission. "The ring," Dorian said quietly. "Try it." She slipped it onto her finger. Perfect fit. Of course it was. "How did you know my size?" "The gloves in your catering kit." A ghost of a smile. "I pay attention." They spent the next hour going through the contract line by line. Renee added clauses about her business operations, her right to maintain independent finances, specific terms for dissolution. Dorian agreed to each addition without argument. "You're not what I expected," she admitted, initialing another page. "Neither are you." He watched her with that intense focus she was starting to recognize. "Most people in your position would be falling apart." "I don't have that luxury." She signed her name with a steady hand. "And I've survived worse than this." "Have you?" Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Foster care teaches you to adapt or break." Renee met his gaze. "I chose to adapt." Dorian nodded slowly. "That's why this will work. You're not looking for rescue. You're looking for resources." "And you're not looking for submission," she countered. "You're looking for alliance." "Smart girl." That rare smile appeared again, brief as lightning. The contract complete, they turned to the marriage license. Renee studied the blank lines where their names would go. Such a simple thing to bind two lives together, even temporarily. "Why marriage?" she asked suddenly. "Why not just add me to your protection roster?" "Because marriage creates legal barriers Cruz can't easily break." Dorian's voice was matter-of-fact. "It gives you access to resources without making you an employee, and it sends a message. You're not just under my protection, you're under my name." "Possession as deterrent. Partnership as shield," he corrected gently. "The ring is optional. The protection is not." Renee twisted the band on her finger, considering. "Your people won't question this?" "My people follow orders." Steel entered his tone. "And those who don't won't be my people for long." She thought of the bodies in the hallway that morning, the precise violence of his hands, the absolute loyalty of his team. Yes, his people would fall in line, or fall. The license lay between them, waiting for signatures that would make this real. Tomorrow they would stand before a judge and speak vows neither of them meant. Or did they? Protection, loyalty, alliance. Weren't those their own kind of promises? Renee picked up the pen, then set it down again. "One more thing." Dorian raised an eyebrow. "I keep my name, professionally and personally." "I wouldn't have it any other way." He actually smiled then, a real one that transformed his face. "Your identity isn't what needs protecting, just your autonomy." She slid the unsigned license back across the table. "Tomorrow, then." Dorian nodded once, that smile lingering like a crack of light in his usual darkness. Tomorrow. The courthouse stood stark against the afternoon sky, its stone facade a reminder that some vows carried the weight of law. Renee smoothed her cream silk blouse, the simple elegance fitting for a civil ceremony that was more contract than romance. Dorian waited at the base of the steps, his dark suit impeccable, his presence drawing second glances from passers-by. Soren hung back, tablet in hand, ever vigilant as he scanned the perimeter. "Ready?" Dorian asked when she reached him. "As I'll ever be." The platinum band felt cool against her skin. Inside, their footsteps echoed through marble halls. The clerk, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, led them to a small chamber where justice was dispensed in 15-minute increments. The ceremony was brief, practical. No flowers, no music, just words that bound them together under the law. When the judge pronounced them married, Dorian's hand was steady as he slid the ring back onto her finger. "Congratulations," the clerk said warmly, clearly hoping for some display of newlywed joy. Renee managed a small smile while Dorian signed the paperwork with precise strokes. Marriage of convenience still looked like marriage to the outside world. Hours later, she stood before a different mirror, this time in the penthouse's master suite. The midnight velvet dress hugged her curves, its deep neckline adorned with a delicate silver chain. Elegant armor for the evening ahead. A knock at the door. "Car's ready," Dorian called. She opened the door to find him waiting, devastatingly handsome, in black tie. His gaze traveled over her slowly, appreciatively, before settling on her face. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "That's the point, isn't it? To be seen? To be seen as what you are, formidable." The waterfront convention center glittered with lights, its modernist glass walls reflecting the harbor. Their SUV joined the line of luxury vehicles depositing guests at the entrance. "Remember," Dorian said quietly as they approached the doors, "minimum 2 hours. Speak to key donors, be visible, then we leave. Soren has eyes on all exits." "I know my part." Renee lifted her chin. "Make them see me as someone worth protecting, not just possessing." His hand settled at the small of her back as they entered, warm through the velvet. The ballroom buzzed with Seattle's elite, old money, new tech, and the shadowy figures who moved between both worlds. Renee recognized faces from charity boards and newspaper photos. She noted who tensed at their arrival, who smiled too broadly, who whispered behind raised hands. "Mrs. Vale," a silver-haired woman called out, "I didn't know you were on the committee." "Please, call me Renee," she smiled warmly. "I'm particularly interested in the youth arts program." For the next hour, she worked the room with practiced ease, her catering experience serving her well. She spoke passionately about food security and community spaces, watching approval replace wariness in donors' eyes. Dorian stayed close but not hovering, his presence a dark star that bent conversations around him. When he did speak, it was with the smooth authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Powder room," Renee murmured to him after a particularly dense discussion about grant allocations. He nodded once. "Take the service corridor. Faster!" The hallway was dimly lit, industrial carpet muffling her steps. She was halfway to the restroom when she heard footsteps behind her. Too many, too quick. 3 men in dark suits emerged from a side door. Cruz's people by their stance and the cold intent in their eyes. "Mrs. Vale," one said, voice oily. "The boss wants a word." She backed away. Pulse. Thundering. "My husband isn't here right now," but he was. Dorian materialized from the shadows like an avenging spirit, his movements liquid violence. The first man's wrist snapped with a sick crack. The second hit the wall hard enough to dent drywall. "Run!" Dorian ordered, his voice terrifyingly calm as he faced the third man. "Ballroom! Now!" Renee ran, velvet skirts gathered in her fists. Behind her came sounds of impact, a choked cry, the thud of bodies meeting floor. She burst into the crowded ballroom, forcing herself to slow to a dignified walk. Soren appeared at her elbow, face tight. "Car's coming around," he said under his breath. "Dorian, handling it." Minutes later, Dorian rejoined them, his tie perfectly straight, his knuckles barely reddened. No one would guess at the violence in the service corridor. Violence meant to protect her. They made their excuses smoothly, citing early meetings. As they walked out, Renee felt eyes following them, calculating this new power dynamic. Let them look. Let them see. The SUV door closed with a solid thunk, sealing them in climate-controlled quiet. Renee released a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Dorian's hand found her knee, warm and steady. "Are you all right?" She nodded, surprised to find it mostly true. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her drained but clear-headed. "You want to stop for coffee?" he asked. "Or straight home?" Home. The word caught her off guard. When had his penthouse become home? But right now, with her heart still racing and the memory of those men's eyes fresh, all she wanted was the safety of high walls and Dorian's protection. "Home," she said softly. His hand tightened briefly on her knee before he signaled the driver. The city lights blurred past as they headed toward the towering building that housed his fortress in the sky. Renee watched Dorian's reflection in the window, the sharp line of his jaw, the vigilant set of his shoulders. Her husband, at least on paper, her protector by choice. The platinum band caught the passing lights, throwing tiny sparks. A temporary solution, she reminded herself. But sitting here in the quiet dark, his hand still steady on her knee, temporary felt less like a limitation and more like a possibility. The penthouse kitchen glowed with warmth, midnight stretching toward dawn as Renee lined up ingredients with methodical precision. Industrial-sized mixing bowls gleamed under recessed lights, and the scent of vanilla hung sweet in the air. 3 cups flour, sifted, she directed, watching Dorian's hands move with the same controlled grace he brought to everything. His tie was gone, collar open, sleeves rolled to expose muscled forearms dusted with flour. "The shelter serves breakfast to 60 people on average," she explained, cracking eggs into a bowl. "These muffins keep well, pack nutrients they need." Dorian measured with military precision. "You've done this before." "Every week for 2 years." She whisked wet ingredients, the familiar motion settling her nerves. Some of these kids, this might be their only real meal of the day. His eyes tracked her movements, noting how she squared her shoulders against memories. "You were one of them once." "Yes." She poured buttermilk, refusing to flinch from the truth. "And now I make sure they eat." They worked in companionable silence, moving around each other in an unconscious dance. Renee noticed how he anticipated her needs, sliding pans closer before she reached, steadying bowls as she poured. A criminal kingpin playing sous chef in his own kitchen. There was something surreal about it. "Next batch needs blueberries," she said, reaching for the container. A drop of batter fell on her cheek. Without thinking, Dorian's thumb brushed it away, gentle despite his calluses. The touch sparked something electric between them. Renee's laugh caught in her throat as his hand lingered. Time stretched like pulled sugar. His eyes darkened, asking a question she felt in her bones. She tilted her face up slightly. Permission, invitation. The first press of his lips was careful, controlled. He tasted of coffee and possibility, his hand cupping her jaw like she was precious. Heat bloomed low in her belly as she leaned into him. His other hand found her waist, steadying. The kiss deepened by degrees, each shift preceded by a pause, a silent check for consent. When she gasped softly, his jaw tightened and he pulled back, pupils blown wide. "Renee!" His voice was rough. "I need to hear you say it's okay." She met his gaze steadily, hands rising to rest against his chest. Yes. The second kiss burned hotter, still careful but edged with hunger. His fingers threaded through her hair, cradling her head as he... The kitchen door burst open. They broke apart as Soren strode in, tablet in hand, face grim. "We have a problem." He held out the device, showing an encrypted message thread. "The ambush tonight wasn't random. Someone's feeding crews information, times, routes, security patterns." Dorian's transformation was instant. The tender lover vanished behind the warlord's mask as he scanned the data, jaw tight. "Lock down all outgoing communications," he ordered. "Full spectrum sweep, nothing gets in or out without manual override. Triple seal the penthouse and start running personnel audits." "Already on it." Soren's fingers flew over the tablet. "I've got programs checking financial transfers, phone records, unusual access patterns." Renee watched Dorian pace, noting how he positioned himself between her and the windows. Even now, protection was instinct. "How deep does your clearance system go?" she asked quietly. 5 levels. Dorian's voice was clipped. "Only 3 people have full access. Myself, Soren, and the head of security." "Start there," she suggested. "Work down through the layers. Someone had to know we'd be at that fundraiser tonight." His quick glance held approval. "Good. Soren, pull the guest list. Cross-reference with known cruise connections. Check the catering staff, security detail, everyone." "The service corridor attack means they had building layout," Soren noted. "Inside knowledge." Renee saw the muscle jump in Dorian's jaw. Betrayal from within his organization. It wasn't just a security breach, it was personal. She understood suddenly what it cost him to pause here, to ensure her safety, when every instinct must be screaming to hunt. The shelter deliveries, she remembered. They're expecting these trays at dawn. Not happening, Dorian said flatly. Not until Those kids need to eat, her voice was firm. Send someone you trust, but those trays go out. I won't let Cruz take this from them, too. Their eyes locked in silent struggle. Finally, Dorian nodded once. 2 hours. Get some sleep while we secure the perimeter. I'll have Knox handle the delivery personally. Deal. She gestured at the cooling racks. But these need to be packed and labeled first. Blueberry separate from banana nut, and the gluten-free. I'll handle it, Soren interrupted, already pulling out storage containers. Go, both of you. Dorian's hand settled at her lower back, guiding her toward the door. The touch was professional now, protective rather than intimate, but Renee felt the echo of his kiss like a brand. 2 hours, he repeated softly. Then we plan our next move. She nodded, watching his shoulders set with deadly purpose as he turned to give Soren additional instructions. The warlord was fully in control now, but she'd felt the man beneath, gentle and asking permission. Both versions were real. Both would kill to keep her safe. The question was, which one would she dream about during her 2 hours of borrowed peace? 2 hours felt like seconds. Renee blinked awake to find Dorian already dressed, standing at the penthouse windows where pre-dawn gray painted the city in watercolor washes. Soren hunched over 3 laptops at the dining table, his tie loose, empty coffee cups scattered around him. Found it, Soren announced, spinning one screen toward them. The reason Cruz wants you specifically, there's a dormant clause in your mother's estate paperwork. She had controlling interest in the Riverside Art Center through a preservation trust. When she died, it transferred to you. Renee moved closer, studying the ancient deed documents. The building was beautiful, even in its decay. Red brick, tall windows, the kind of architectural bones that whispered of better days. Cruz needs that property, Dorian explained, his voice tight. It's the missing piece in his laundering corridor. The charitable donations flowing through his other holdings need that central hub to look legitimate. I can acquire it through shell companies, he continued. Clean transfer, your name never appears. Cruz loses his root and you stay safely anonymous. Renee traced her finger over her mother's signature. No. No? Dorian's eyebrow lifted. I'm claiming it myself. Publicly. She straightened her spine. My mother believed in what that place stood for. Art, community, safe spaces for kids to create. I won't let Cruz twist that legacy. It's dangerous, Soren warned. Public means exposed. Then we protect her properly, Dorian said quietly. His eyes held Renee's, acknowledging her choice. Full security detail, vetted press contacts, legal team on standby. We do this clean and fast. Take possession this morning, file the paperwork by noon, announce restoration plans before Cruz can mobilize opposition. Relief loosened Renee's shoulders. He wasn't fighting her on this. I'll need something professional to wear, she said. Already handled. Soren gestured toward a garment bag. Caleb's wife picked everything, suit, shoes, accessories. She has good taste. The next hour blurred with preparation. Renee emerged in a cream blazer and pencil skirt that fit perfectly, her hair swept up, minimal makeup emphasizing her natural beauty. Dorian's quick intake of breath made her smile. They reached the art center just as sunrise gilded the brick, but instead of empty sidewalks, they found a small crowd gathered. Local residents, some with handmade signs supporting arts funding, others clearly worried about gentrification. 2 news vans idled nearby. This wasn't us, Soren muttered, scanning faces. Someone leaked the timeline. Good, Renee said firmly. They deserve to know what's happening in their neighborhood. She stepped out before anyone could stop her, Dorian a shadow at her shoulder. The crowd's murmuring grew. My name is Renee Parker, she called out, her voice clear and steady. My mother volunteered here for years before this building went dark. She believed art could save lives, give kids somewhere to go after school, teach them to express themselves, build community through creativity. She moved closer to the gathering, noting how Dorian's security smoothly adjusted their positions. I'm here to reclaim this space for its original purpose. No luxury condos, no corporate offices. We're going to restore these walls, repair the roof, and bring the studios back to life. There will be safeguards against exploitation and misuse of funds. Every dollar will be tracked, and every program will serve this community. A woman with gray hair stepped forward. We've heard promises before. Then watch what we do, not what we say, Renee replied. I grew up 3 blocks from here. This neighborhood raised me when I had nothing else. I owe it more than empty words. The woman studied her, then nodded slowly. Others began asking questions about timeline, funding, programs. Renee answered honestly, neither overselling nor apologizing. When the building manager arrived with the keys, she felt the weight of history in the tarnished brass. Standing on the worn steps, she held it up for the crowd to see. "We'll have lights on by winter," she promised. "Art on the walls by spring, and my door will always be open to hear your concerns." A smattering of applause broke out. She saw phones recording, reporters scribbling notes, small victories but meaningful ones. Dorian guided her toward the waiting SUV with practiced ease, his hand warm at the small of her back. As the door closed, she finally let out a shaky breath. "You did well," he said softly. "Very well." It felt right. She pressed the key into her palm until it left an impression. Being honest about it. Honesty is strategy. It wrongfoots crews completely. He expects backdoor deals and shell companies. Open community support makes it harder for him to move against you. "That wasn't why I did it." "I know." His smile was slight but real. "That's what makes it work." The SUV pulled away from the curb, merging into morning traffic. Renee watched the art center recede in the side mirror, its windows catching the sunrise like promise. "Tell me about the security arrangements," she said. "If I'm going to be hands-on with the restoration, I need to understand the protocols." "We'll set up a rotating detail, all vetted personally by Soren. Surveillance systems, panic buttons, secure communications, plus background checks on every contractor and volunteer." She nodded, already planning. "The roof needs to be first. Water damage will only get worse. Then electrical systems, heating. The studios can wait until the structure is sound. I know some specialists who work off the books, skilled, discreet, and they don't ask questions about funding sources. As long as they're not connected to crews." "Never." His voice hardened. "Nothing I touch goes near his operations." They rode in comfortable silence for a few blocks, the city waking around them. Renee felt the key warming in her hand, its edges softened by decades of use. Her mother had held the same key once, unlocked these same doors with similar dreams. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for letting me do it my way." Dorian's hand found hers, fingers interlacing. "Your choice, your terms, always." The first shot shattered their victory's afterglow. 15 minutes into their return route, as the convoy entered the tunnel's concrete throat, a distinctive pop hiss preceded the lead vehicle's sudden swerve. "Spike strip!" Caleb shouted from the front seat. The world erupted in calculated violence. Bullets hammered their armored panels like angry fists, the impacts precise and coordinated. This wasn't a random hit. It carried the cold efficiency of military training. "Down!" Dorian commanded, pushing Renee into the floor well between seats. His entire demeanor shifted, casual authority hardening into battlefield control. "Status report. Lead car disabled, rear guard engaging." Caleb's voice was clipped as he returned fire through a narrow window gap. "Multiple shooters, elevated positions." Soren's fingers flew across his tablet. "GPS showing alternate routes. Wait, something's wrong with the..." More bullets pinged off the reinforced glass. Renee pressed herself smaller, heart thundering against the carpet. The smell of cordite and hot metal filled the cabin. "Push through," Dorian ordered. "Smoke coverage, full acceleration." Their driver responded instantly. The SUV lurched forward as smoke canisters deployed, creating a gray wall between them and their attackers. Renee felt the vehicle take hard turns, Dorian's hand steady on her shoulder, keeping her in place. A wet grunt from the front seat caught her attention. "Caleb?" "Grazed. I'm fine." But his voice was tight with pain. They broke free of the ambush zone, tires screaming as they took corners at dangerous speeds. Dorian maintained radio contact with their security teams, coordinating countermeasures and surveillance with mechanical precision. Only the white-knuckled grip of his free hand betrayed his rage. When they finally reached the underground garage of a Vale safe house, the full damage became clear. Bullet holes riddled their vehicles. Blood stained Caleb's shirt along his ribs, and Soren's face had gone ash gray as he stared at his tablet. "The GPS reroute," he said hoarsely. "It came from my credentials, but I swear I didn't." "Secure him!" Dorian's voice could have frozen flame. 2 guards moved to flank Soren, who raised his hand slowly. "I understand the protocol. I'll sit in restraints while you investigate. But someone's framing me." "The timing doesn't work," Renee interjected, studying the tablet's timestamp log. "Look, the reroute was initiated while Soren was driving point in the lead car. Unless he can be in 2 places at once, someone cloned his access." The garage fell silent except for the tick of cooling engines. Dorian's expression was terrifying in its stillness. "Show me," he demanded. Renee pointed to the sequence of events. Here's Soren's check-in from the lead vehicle at 7:42. The reroute was triggered at 7:43 from a different IP address. Even if he wanted to betray us, he couldn't have physically done both. Dorian examined the logs with surgical focus, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. After a long moment, he spoke to the guards. "Secure him in the east wing, full surveillance, no outside contact, but no restraints." Relief flickered across Soren's face before professional neutrality returned. He allowed himself to be escorted away without protest. "Let me look at that wound," Renee said to Caleb, who was trying to stem the bleeding with his jacket. "It's nothing. It's not nothing. Sit!" To her surprise, he obeyed, sinking onto a nearby equipment crate. She found a first aid kit in one of the vehicles and began cleaning the graze along his ribs. The bullet had carved a deep furrow through flesh, but hadn't penetrated. "You're lucky," she murmured, applying pressure bandages. Luck had nothing to do with it. Training and armor did their jobs. But Caleb's voice held an odd note she couldn't quite read. Dorian paced nearby, coordinating teams. Through his earpiece, and issuing rapid-fire orders for building sweeps, communications audits, and surveillance reviews. His rage was a living thing barely contained beneath his skin. Renee finished bandaging Caleb and turned to face Dorian directly. "I meant what I said about the timing. Soren isn't your traitor. Evidence will determine that. And if the evidence is manipulated too, will you execute an innocent man to satisfy your need for immediate vengeance?" His head snapped toward her, eyes dangerous. "You don't understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly. I was just shot at, remember? But I won't watch you murder the wrong person because you're angry." She stepped closer, refusing to be intimidated by his darkness. "If you kill Soren without absolute proof, I walk, tonight, and I won't come back." The garage seemed to hold its breath. Even the guards looked away, suddenly fascinated by blank walls. Dorian's voice emerged through clenched teeth. "I heard you?" "Good." Renee held his gaze. "Then hear this too. Someone wants you to doubt Soren. They want you divided and reactive. The real traitor is counting on your temper making you sloppy." She saw the impact of her words land, saw him wrestle his fury back under control. His next orders into the calm were precise and measured, focused on evidence collection rather than retribution. Caleb watched this exchange with hooded eyes, one hand pressed to his bandaged side. The garage lights cast strange shadows across his face, making his expression unreadable. The penthouse hummed with reinforced security as evening settled over the city. New comm relays blinked silently, routing their messages through channels crews couldn't touch. Renee watched Dorian coordinate the last details, his shoulders rigid with contained violence. When the final guard left, she spoke softly from the kitchen doorway. "We need to talk about how we handle this." He turned, expression carved from stone. "The mole will be found and eliminated." "That's exactly what I mean." Renee moved to the marble island between them. "You solve problems with blood. I solve them by feeding the living. If we're really partners in this, we need both approaches without destroying innocent people in the crossfire. There's no room for half measures when... There's always room for humanity," she cut in. "Your sister wouldn't want..." The words died as his face went absolutely still. She hadn't meant to voice the speculation that had been building since she saw how he responded to vulnerable women, how he built fortresses around those he claimed. After a long moment, he spoke in a voice she'd never heard before. "Her name was Sarah." Renee stayed quiet, letting him find the words. "She was 12. I was 17. His hands gripped the counter edge. "The foster system was supposed to protect her while I got my GED, found work. Instead, it delivered her to a predator with a clean record and church references." The city lights painted shadows across his face as he continued. "By the time I tracked her down, she'd been gone 3 days. The police said there wasn't enough evidence. The system said their hands were tied." His knuckles went white. "I build fortresses now because I couldn't build one then." Renee moved around the island slowly, giving him time to retreat. He didn't. When she touched his arm, the muscle was steel hard with tension. "It wasn't your fault," she whispered. "I should have been faster, smarter, should have seen the signs." "You were 17. She stepped closer, feeling the tremors he tried to suppress. "You were a child, too." His breath caught roughly. When she wrapped her arms around him, he stayed perfectly still for 3 heartbeats before crushing her against his chest. She held him through the storm, feeling decades of guilt shake loose. Finally, he pulled back enough to cup her face in his hands. "I won't fail again. Not with you." "I know." She covered his hands with hers. "But protection doesn't have to mean destruction. We can be better than them." His thumbs traced her cheekbones with aching gentleness. "You make me want to be." The kiss began soft, a question rather than a demand. When she pressed closer, his control wavered. "Tell me to stop," he breathed against her mouth. "I don't want you to stop." She met his darkened gaze. "I want you to keep going." "Be sure." His voice was rough. "Be very sure." In answer, she drew him down for another kiss, deeper this time. He groaned low in his throat and lifted her onto the counter, stepping between her thighs. "Yes?" he asked between kisses. "Yes," she gasped as his mouth found her neck. "God, yes." They made their way to his bedroom, leaving a trail of clothing, every step punctuated by soft questions and eager answers. When he laid her on the silk sheets, his touch was reverent. "You're beautiful," he murmured, tracing curves that made her shiver. She pulled him closer, skin to skin. "Show me." He did, with exquisite patience and explicit care, reading every response and adjusting accordingly. When she finally came apart beneath him, crying out his name, he followed with a broken sound that might have been a prayer. After she lay curled in his arms, feeling oddly safe despite everything. His fingers drew lazy patterns on her skin as their breathing settled. The buzz of her phone shattered the peace. Renee reached for it, freezing when she saw the number. One she'd memorized years ago. Trevor. The text was brief. "Meet me alone. End this nightmare. You know where." She did know. The old carousel in Henderson Park where they'd hidden from foster parents' fights. Her mind raced. Trevor had signed those papers that put her in Cruz's crosshairs. If she could confront him directly? Dorian's breathing had deepened into sleep, his arm heavy across her waist. Moving carefully, she slipped free and pulled on her clothes. The tracker he'd given her days ago was still in her jacket pocket. She activated it before scribbling a note. "Gone to cut off the blackmail at the source. I know what I'm doing. Trust me." The service elevator descended silently. When she stepped into the sodium-lit night, her heart hammered against her ribs. The tracker pulsed green in her palm, sending out its steady signal. She took a deep breath of cool air and started walking. Behind her, the penthouse lights gleamed like a fortress she was choosing to leave, if only for a while. The tracker pinged softly, marking her movement through the darkness. One step closer to answers. One step closer to ending this on her own terms. The night air bit at Renee's exposed skin as she followed Trevor's directions. Her phone's GPS leading her deeper into the warehouse district. Steel-sided buildings loomed like ancient monoliths, their shadows stretching across empty loading zones and chain-link fences. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed out the panic code they'd established. A seemingly innocent text about a cake delivery that would silently alert Soren's systems. She didn't want a tactical team storming in. She needed the advantage of appearing alone and vulnerable. The warehouse Trevor had chosen sat like a fortress of corrugated metal, its windows blacked out and heavy padlocks securing the side doors. Only the small personnel entrance stood ajar, spilling weak fluorescent light onto the cracked concrete. The smell hit her first, industrial bleach trying to mask something metallic and organic underneath. Her stomach turned as she stepped inside, her boots echoing in the vast space. Chains hung from exposed beams, swaying slightly in drafts she couldn't feel, their links casting spiderweb shadows on the scarred floor. "Trevor?" Her voice sounded smaller than she intended. He emerged from behind a stack of empty pallets, looking smaller too, hunched and twitchy, his usually neat clothes rumpled. "You actually came?" The relief in his voice couldn't mask his shame. "Of course I came. We're family." The word tasted bitter now. "I'm sorry, Ren. I'm so fucking sorry." Trevor ran, shaking hands through his hair. "I didn't mean for any of this. The gambling. It got out of control. Cruz's people offered a way out. By selling me out?" The hurt blazed through her chest. "Using my name? My documents? They said it was just paperwork. Just signatures to move some money around, clean it up." His laugh was hollow. "I was so stupid. Thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed." Heavy footsteps echoed from the shadows. Valerio Cruz stepped into the light like he was entering a boardroom, not a kill floor. His cashmere coat probably cost more than most people made in a month. "Ms. Parker?" His smile never reached his eyes. Or should I say, Mrs. Vale? Such a hasty ceremony. Renee lifted her chin. What do you want? To share some truth before we proceed. Cruz gestured, and two men emerged to flank Trevor. Your foster brother isn't my only source inside. Vale's operation. What are you talking about? Show her, Cruz commanded. One of the men tossed a tablet onto a nearby crate. Security footage played silently. Caleb Knox entering codes, copying files, speaking into a burner phone. Timestamps matched crucial information leaks. No. Renee's denial was automatic. Caleb is loyal to Dorian. Loyal to his gambling debts, perhaps. Cruz's smile widened. Would you like to hear his voice discussing terms? He played an audio file. Caleb's distinctive drawl was unmistakable as he detailed building layouts, security protocols, and patrol patterns. He used Zoran's credentials, Cruz continued, planted evidence to frame him while feeding us everything we needed. Quite elegant, really. Trevor wouldn't meet her eyes. I gave him your old documents, your texts. He said it was just insurance. The betrayal burned cold in Renee's chest. She'd trusted Caleb, let him guard her back, bandaged his wounds, all while he was setting them up to fall. Rough hands grabbed her arms before she could react. She fought, but they were ready for it, efficiently securing her wrists to one of the hanging hooks. The metal bit into her skin. Keep breathing, she told herself silently, remembering Dorian's lessons. Count the seconds, stay present. Cruz approached, each step measured and deliberate. His cologne couldn't quite mask the bleach smell. Your noble husband will find you eventually, of course. But first, the city will watch your careful construction crumble. Your reputation, your new property, your touching little marriage. All exposed as fraud by midnight. Dorian will what? Storm and guns blazing? Cruz laughed softly. His own enforcer has given us every detail of his tactical playbook. And you, my dear, walked right into our hands. Renee met his gaze steadily, even as fear clawed at her throat. She thought of Dorian's promise, whispered against her skin just hours ago. Call, and I will come. Always. Her lips formed his name like a prayer, like a beacon in the dark. Dorian! Cruz's hand shot out, gripping her jaw. Save your breath, Mrs. Vale. You'll need it to explain to the press how you helped launder money through community programs. Such a disappointing end to your mother's legacy. Trevor made a choked sound. You said we'd just scare her, make her sign. Quiet. Cruz didn't even look at him. You've served your purpose. The chains creaked overhead as Renee tested her bonds, mind racing. The tracker would have registered her location. Zoran would be monitoring. Dorian would be coming. She just had to survive until then. Cruz's phone buzzed, and he stepped away to answer it, speaking rapid Italian. Trevor hovered at the edge of the light, shoulders hunched with guilt. The guards maintained their positions, professional and alert. Renee forced herself to breathe slowly, counting seconds in her head. She pictured Dorian moving through the city toward her, efficient and lethal. Pictured Zoran coordinating their approach, having already identified the real mole in their ranks. The chains swayed slightly in the stale air. Blood trickled down her wrist where the metal had rubbed raw. But she kept breathing, kept counting, kept Dorian's name like a talisman in her mind. Cruz returned, adjusting his sleeves. Now then, Mrs. Vale, shall we begin your public confession? Renee whispered Dorian's name again, not as a plea this time, but as a promise. He would come. And when he did, Cruz would learn exactly what it meant to cage something precious to Dorian Vale. The warehouse plunged into darkness as the main power cut. Emergency lights sputtered, casting sickly green shadows across the concrete floor. Cruz's men scrambled for positions, their boots echoing in the cavernous space. Find the breaker! Cruz barked, but his command was swallowed by the first explosion. The west entrance blew inward with a thunderous crack. Smoke billowed through the gap as dark figures moved with practiced precision. At their head, Dorian Vale stepped through the chaos like death incarnate, his movements economical and lethal. 2 guards went down before they could raise their weapons. A third managed to squeeze off a shot that pinged harmlessly off a support beam. Dorian's return fire was surgically precise. Zoran's voice crackled through their encrypted comms. Caleb's signal moving northeast, 2nd level, pursuing. Acknowledged. Dorian advanced steadily, each step calculated. Find him. Renee hung suspended from the chains, blood trickling down her arms, but her eyes were clear and focused. She tracked Dorian's approach, even as Cruz grabbed her hair, pressing a gun to her temple. Stop there, Cruz commanded, or I paint the floor with her. Dorian didn't break stride. You're already dead. The only question's how long it takes. Trevor cowered behind a stack of crates, hands raised. Don't shoot! I'll tell you everything! Shut up! Cruz's grip tightened on Renee's hair. Another explosion rocked the building's north side. Cruz's head turned instinctively toward the sound. It was all the opening Dorian needed. His first shot knocked the gun from Cruz's hand. The second drove the man back, away from Renee. Cruz stumbled but kept his feet, drawing a knife as he retreated. Dorian reached Renee in 3 long strides. The knife in his hand made quick work of her bonds. He caught her as she sagged forward, supporting her weight while checking her injuries. Can you stand? He asked quietly. Yes. Her voice was hoarse but steady. Dorian pressed his combat knife into her palm, curling her fingers around the grip. Trevor's yours to deal with. Your choice. Renee's hand tightened on the weapon as she turned toward her former foster brother. Trevor scrambled backward, babbling pleas and excuses. Please, Renee, they threatened me. I didn't know what else to do. She advanced on him, blade gleaming in the emergency lights. For a moment, the warehouse held its breath. Then Renee spoke, her voice carrying clearly through the space. You're going to police custody. You'll sign a full confession detailing every document you forged, every child you helped exploit. Let the city see exactly how the system failed us. You can't. I can. And I am. She turned to Dorian. Make it happen. He nodded once, respect evident in his expression. 2 of his men moved to secure Trevor, who slumped in defeat. Cruz chose that moment to launch himself at Dorian, knife slashing. Dorian moved with fluid grace, deflecting the blade and driving his elbow into Cruz's sternum. The fight was brutal, but brief, a deadly dance of steel and skill that ended with Cruz gasping on his knees. The city was mine, Cruz spat blood. The city belongs to itself. Dorian's voice was cold. You just borrowed it for a while. The killing blow was swift and final. Cruz toppled without another sound. Above them, gunfire echoed briefly before Soren's voice came through again. Caleb secured. He's alive, but he won't enjoy tomorrow. Renee swayed slightly, the adrenaline crash hitting her system. Dorian was there instantly, gathering her against his chest. His heartbeat was strong and steady under her cheek. You came, she whispered. Always. He pressed his lips to her temple. You're mine, Renee, not because I claimed you, but because you chose me. Even in the fire, you chose me. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Soren appeared at the top of the stairs, shoving a bound and cursing Caleb ahead of him. The traitor's face was bloody, his expensive suit torn. Transfer vehicles 2 minutes out, Soren reported. We're clear for exit. Dorian's arms tightened fractionally around Renee. Ready to go home. She nodded against his chest, exhausted but unbroken. Behind them, Trevor was being led out in cuffs, already stammering offers to cooperate. Caleb thrashed and raged as Soren's men secured him for transport. The emergency lights cast strange shadows across the warehouse floor, turning blood black and making monsters of simple machinery. But Renee felt no fear now, wrapped in Dorian's protective embrace. She had faced her demons and made her choices. She had chosen justice over vengeance, chosen love over fear. Home, she agreed softly. Dorian's team moved with practiced efficiency, securing the scene and establishing their timeline for the inevitable investigation. Evidence was cataloged, shell casings collected, surveillance footage secured. Through it all, Dorian kept Renee close, his body between her and any potential threat. The first police units arrived as Soren's men finished their sweep. Official statements would come later, after lawyers and prosecutors had their say. For now, there was only the quiet aftermath of violence, the settling dust of justice served. Caleb's betrayal would leave scars on the organization, but they would heal stronger. Trevor's confession would help dismantle Cruz's exploitation network. And Renee, standing tall despite her wounds, had proven herself more than equal to the darkness that had tried to claim her. Let's go, Dorian murmured, guiding her toward the exit. Dawn's coming. She leaned into his strength, knowing it would always be offered, never imposed. Together they walked out of the warehouse, leaving behind the chains that had bound her and the blood that had bought her freedom. The autumn chill settled over the city as weeks turned to months, each day marking small victories in their shared recovery. Renee's nightmares came less frequently now, though Dorian still woke instantly when she stirred, offering silent comfort until her breathing steadied. Their morning routine began in the kitchen, her sanctuary, where she kneaded dough while he reviewed security reports, their domesticity punctuated by quiet touches and shared coffee. The Arts Center transformation started from the ground up. Renee insisted on preserving the original architecture while modernizing the spaces inside. The bakery classroom became her pride, equipped with professional-grade ovens and workstations sized for children. She developed programs targeting at-risk youth, teaching life skills through measuring cups and mixing bowls. "Everyone deserves a safe place to create," she told Dorian as they toured the renovation progress. He watched her gesture animatedly about future plans, her eyes bright with purpose. The rooftop garden took shape under her careful planning. Raised beds of herbs, flowering vines along pergolas, and comfortable seating areas where students could sketch or read. Solar-powered string lights created a gentle glow at dusk, transforming the former industrial space into an urban oasis. Dorian worked through his channels, methodically dismantling Cruz's network of fake charities. His testimony, delivered through carefully vetted counsel, exposed decades of exploitation. Each revelation strengthened their position while protecting their privacy. The Scholarship Foundation, established in memory of Renee's mother, provided arts education to foster children, a legacy of hope rising from the ashes of corruption. Caleb's arrest made headlines, but Dorian's influence ensured the coverage focused on financial crimes rather than syndicate politics. Trevor's public confession painted a damning picture of systemic abuse, leading to reforms in foster care oversight. The Mercer brothers' disappearance raised no official questions. The waterfront simply adjusted to their absence, like the tide washing away footprints in the sand. Through it all, Renee and Dorian's relationship deepened beyond their practical arrangement. They learned each other's rhythms, her stress baking at midnight, his tendency to pace when working through problems. She discovered he had a sweet tooth, but would only indulge when they were alone. He found himself seeking her insight on diplomatic matters, valuing her instinct for people's motivations. Their wedding ceremony reflected this evolution. The Arts Center rooftop glowed with lantern light as sunset painted the sky in amber and rose. No press, no spectacle, just their closest circle witnessing their chosen commitment. Renee wore a simple cream dress that made Dorian's breath catch, while his dark suit emphasized the protective strength she'd come to trust. "This ring," Renee said, sliding the band onto his finger, "represents choice, not chains. My protection of your heart, freely given." Dorian's vows were equally measured, promising to wield his power as her shield rather than her cage. "My strength serves your freedom," he declared, his usual reserve softening as he looked at her. "My control exists to guard your choices." Their evenings settled into comfortable patterns. The penthouse kitchen became command central, Renee decorating wedding cakes or testing new recipes while Dorian worked through intelligence briefs. His weapon remained within reach, a reminder of the dangers they navigated, but his expression softened whenever she passed him a sample to taste. The city's perception shifted gradually. Where once there were whispers of fear, now came stories of transformation. The Arts Center hosted gallery shows featuring local artists, community events that brought life back to the waterfront. Children took weekend baking classes, their laughter drifting up to the herb garden where seniors tended lavender and thyme. "You've changed things," Soren commented one evening, reviewing security footage. "People see possibility now, not just power." Dorian's influence remained absolute, but it manifested differently, his resources protected rather than intimidated. The syndicate's operations continued, but with cleaner lines between business and brutality. Renee's influence showed in small ways: scholarship recipients getting internships, troubled teens finding mentors, families healing through shared creativity. They walked the center's halls each evening during final security checks, their footsteps echoing in comfortable synchronization. Renee would often pause to straighten a student's artwork or adjust a display, while Dorian monitored blind spots and exit routes with practiced ease. Their hands found each other naturally, fingers interlacing without conscious thought. Tonight, the setting sun streamed through western windows, casting long shadows across polished floors. The bakery classroom still held traces of the day's lessons. A light dusting of flour, the lingering scent of vanilla. Upstairs, the herb garden rustled in the evening breeze, string lights beginning to twinkle against the darkening sky. "Ready?" Dorian asked, completing his final perimeter check. Renee nodded, gathering her bag as they moved toward the exit. Their shoulders brushed as they walked, comfortable in shared silence. The string lights overhead cast a soft glow on their path, transforming the industrial corridor into something almost magical. They paused at the main entrance while Dorian entered the security code. Renee leaned slightly into his side, feeling the solid warmth of him, his free arm wrapped around her waist automatically, protective without possessing. The lock engaged with a decisive click. They stepped out together into the cool evening air, the city lights spreading before them like scattered stars. Their joined hands swung gently between them as they walked, a simple gesture that spoke volumes about trust earned and boundaries respected. Above them, the Arts Center's restored facade stood proud against the night sky, its windows glowing softly. String lights traced the rooftop garden's outline, a beacon of beauty rising from what was once a criminal's shadow territory. Together they had built something remarkable, a sanctuary founded on choice, strengthened by consent and protected by the unique balance they'd forged between power and tenderness.